Alright, been back after a bit of a break. I was just out of it for a few days, and that's why I've been uploading. But I'm back, and I'm ready to get back into into it and everything. So yeah, I was about to say get into something else. Jesus Christ. Anyways, we're looking at Goji Centers. What if Destoroyah was in the Monsterverse? So far, it hasn't happened, but it is definitely a possibility. From what I know, Destoroyah is the reincarnation of, or incarnation, or whatever, or the spawn of the Oxygen Destroyer, which was used in King of the Monsters to try to kill Godzilla. Didn't work, but it did do a good job at knocking the mess out of him, though. That's one thing it did do. And, well, that already pretty much lays the groundwork for bringing Destoroyah into the Monsterverse. Now, what would happen? I don't know. I don't know what would happen if he was. He'd most likely try and kill Godzilla, because, well, he's pretty much the Thanos / dark side of the Monsterverse, or not just Godzilla in general, yeah. So it would definitely be very interesting. That much is for sure. Then, because, you know, you could have like a damn Avenger, like Monsterverse Avengers moment with like all the monsters fighting Destoroyah or something like that. But I don't know if that'll happen. Then I don't remember where I heard this from, but I heard a pretty good theory that instead of Destoroyah being like the final boss or whatever, we'd get like some kind of new original kaiju. Because, more specifically, because like, I'm not too accurate on this, but I think Godzilla, his name, is like, means like reincarnation of God or something like that. So it's like, we'll probably get like a new original kaiju that's like the reincarnation of the devil or something like that. I don't know. I'm going off of what I remember, so yeah. Anyways, enough of that. Let's just go ahead and see what this video's got in store for us. So let's just jump right in, shall we?
If there is one monster in all of Godzilla history that posed a real challenge for Godzilla, a creature with weapons that are difficult to counter, size that will make Godzilla look small, and an evil personality, it's this one,
Yep.
Destoroyah. Today on Goji Center, we'll provide an answer to a question everyone's been wondering about. What if Destoroyah made his debut in the Monsterverse? Will he look similar? How does the Monsterverse timeline set up the return of this kaiju? And finally,
I would be very curious to see what it would be like, because like I want to see like all the kaijus and like modern day technology and everything, because you know, well, I imagine the movies back then were good. The reason I don't go back and watch all of the old Godzilla movies is because of how spoiled I have been with modern day technology. Because I look at the Monsterverse and it's animated so well and everything, and I look at those and it's like, it's just guys in suits, or poor CGI or whatever, and or poor CGI now or whatever, and it's like, and it's like we could, and it's like whenever it comes to the quality of editing and everything, they could definitely use an upgrade. But I mean, hell, all of them. But I want to see what all of them look like with modern day technology. Like, bring back everything for like something, all right? Because like I want to like. Because it's just, I just want to see what it's like, you know? Like, I want to know if there's going to be, like, a sequel to Godzilla -1, where, and, like, see, like, if Toho is going to use one of its original stuffs, because they don't have to go through, like, licensing bullshit to figure that out, because, you know, they own the licenses to everything, and they can just pop something out, you know? Maybe they can make a recreation of Godzilla 2 or Godzilla Strikes Again and have him fight Angriris, whatever the fuck it's pronounced. Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting.
will this creature be more powerful than Godzilla? Stay until the end.
Damn, it really dwarfs even
will this
Shimo.
creature
Damn, yeah, it is pretty big in terms of kaiju.
be more powerful than Godzilla? Stay until the end to find out. Before we start talking about the Monsterverse at all, let's do a quick recap and refresh our memories on the history and abilities of this kaiju. This is important because by doing this, we'll have a very good idea of how this guy will fit into the Monsterverse. Destoroyah.
Yeah, it'd also be nice to see, because, like, I'm just curious.
Doing this, we'll have a very good idea of how this guy.
Like this, it looks like it's all kind of stuck together, like kind of like an action figure. But then you animate it, and it looks like it can actually move around and shit.
I will fit into the Monsterverse. Destoroyah first appeared in the 1995 film Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, the last of the Heisei Godzilla series. But it didn't always look like this. Going back a few decades, in 1954, in the original Godzilla film, we witnessed the use of a weapon known as the Oxygen Destroyer, used to kill Godzilla in Tokyo Bay. What nobody knew was that in this precise location, ancient Precambrian crustaceans underwent mutations thanks to the effects of this weapon, instigating an evolutionary process that would bring forth nightmarish creatures that would only be countered with a combination of maser cannons, the high-tech aircraft Super X-3, AH-64 Apaches, and Type 90 tanks. This footage courtesy of War Thunder, our sponsor. If you enjoy the high adrenaline rush of simulated warfare,
a game where government documents were leaked. Or military, well, same thing, pretty much.
Command of vast amounts of combat vehicles on multiplayer maps.
I still haven't gone back to look into that whole thing. I'm gonna go back and look into it ever since the last time it was brought up to me.
On land, sea, air, and blowing things up. This game is for you, dude. And no, you don't have to pay anything. It's free to play on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. We at Goji Center strongly back this game up because the in-game experience and attention to details make this second to none. Graphics, physics, and sound have come a long way and are only getting better. All advanced military tech is available, and you have the option to break through the front line in a tank or stay up and cover ground vehicles from a helicopter and participate in fighter battles in the clouds. And we got none of the outdated health bar crap here. Every hit on the enemy has a different effect. Disable their track and your opponent can't move. Hit the fuel tank and the plane goes boom. Dance of Dragons is the name of the most epic update yet. This game has now added a whole line of French combat boats, the American attack aircraft A-10 Thunderbolt, the tactical bomber F-111, and the top-tier Chinese fighter jets J-10A and JF-17. If you're ready to dive into the best military game experience of your life, click the link below, and all new players or those that haven't played for 6 months or more will get rentals for the P-40E aircraft and M4 tank for a week with unique skins, special decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 3 premium vehicles for free, and a week of premium account and more. Hurry, because the American vehicle bonus season will end soon. Let's all thank War Thunder for sponsoring today's episode, and now let's return to Destoroyah. The reason why Destoroyah wound up this big and resistant was due to the mutations it went through as the micro-oxygen from the Oxygen Destroyer integrated itself into this animal's biology. What makes this kaiju unique is the fact that this creature comes in many different forms. This will be important to keep in mind once we start talking about it.
Yeah, because I still haven't taken a good look at every single form. It's nice to see it all from here, yeah. The little tiny little shit here getting bigger, and then, yeah. Turns into this fucking monstrous atrocity.
Its appearance in the Monsterverse. The first form was its microform. After the micro-oxygen mutated this animal, these began evolving into a crawling form, feeding itself and eventually reaching sizes that would surpass humans and end up...
Was that multiple that I just saw?
Form. After the micro-oxygen mutated this animal, these began evolving into a crawling form, feeding itself and eventually reaching sizes that would surpass humans and end up looking like pure nightmare fuel. Unlike the other kaiju Godzilla had faced in the past, these creatures would come together and morph into what was known as an aggregate form. This and the previous forms were similar in that these animals looked very similar to a...
Nice, I get to learn more about this too, because I still don't know absolutely everything about the story. I know a bit about it, just not all of it.
Walking crustacean with many limbs, covered by a thick red-colored armor resistant to many firearms. It was at this stage, however, where a few kinks in its armor were beginning to be identified. It was identified that constant exposure to extreme temperatures, in combination with explosive force, would begin compromising this creature's armor. This was a weakness in the smaller, juvenile forms, and we'll see in a little bit that this would be a serious problem later. The aggregate form was a result of a supernatural phenomenon where these animals would combine themselves into a stronger and larger creature. This already sounds bad enough, but it gets worse. This aggregate form can morph into a flying creature, seemingly gliding through the air without relying on flapping its wings to sustain itself in the air. Destoroyah would, and for the final time, change its form yet again. This time turning into what was known as its perfect form. This one is the only iteration of Destoroyah that stood on 2 legs, and one that seemingly developed a full endo and exoskeleton. It is here where it would begin causing some...
It's nicer to see it, like, animated in this, you know?
Endo and exoskeleton. It is here where it would begin causing some real serious trouble to Godzilla. And if this form were to be translated into the Monsterverse, it would be even worse.
Oh yeah, I bet.
The original perfect form of Destoroyah stood a whopping 120 meters in height. That is around the same height as legendary Godzilla in 2019 and beyond.
Okay, so Legendary's taller than Heisei. Alright, nice.
Compared to Godzilla in the film, we're talking about almost a 66-foot difference. Destoroyah was equipped with robust arms with 3 claws oriented in a way that it could hold an opponent or clench these together to serve as piercing weapons. Its hallmark frill is present among most of its different forms, with a prominent horn in the center of its head. Wingspan-wise, we're talking about 210 meters. That is 689 feet.
Yeah, having the wingspan just makes it fucking huge.
Equally as intimidating, the Destroyer had a very long tail, present in most of its forms, but most lethal in its flying and perfect forms. Tipped with a pincer-like appendage that could hold and drag opposing kaiju, and equipped with energy-absorbing properties that would drain energy from its opponents. Now that we're talking about weapons, we'll go ahead and highlight a few that will probably make a transition to a Monsterverse version of Destoroyah in some way or form. Beginning with its Oxygen Blast, which was present in the juvenile aggregate flying.
I'm not gonna lie, now that I think about it, Destoroyah kind of reminds me of a Dark Souls boss for some reason. I don't know why, it just does.
And perfect forms. This blast was described as having the power of the Oxygen Destroyer that ended up killing Godzilla. Earlier in the film, in a live interview...
Yeah, that's definitely gotta suck though. Like, the dark side / Thanos of your universe not only is extremely powerful, but it's also just got a huge advantage over you entirely, because it's literally just... It's literally just, what's the word? Thing was like the reincarnation of the thing that was used to kill you and is super effective against you. It's basically just like Pokemon, using a super effective Pokemon against you.
Dr. Ajuin did mention that this stuff was powerful enough to penetrate metal, meaning that this could be used as a world-ending weapon. A fun-sized version of this destructive force was present in these smaller crustaceans, but as Destoroyah began reaching larger sizes, this weapon began to show signs of being much more powerful. Destoroyah in its aggregate form was able to inflict a fatal wound to Godzilla Jr., injecting this destructive matter inside its body, causing him to foam in the mouth and suffocate. This micro-oxygen served another purpose, a way to...
See, I didn't know how much Godzilla Jr. was fighting these fuckers. Then again, I guess... if I was a good... See, I don't even know what I was gonna say now.
And bits of DNA into Destoroyah's system. Yeah, that's right. Destoroyah can absorb DNA from other kaiju.
Yep,
this act allowed Destoroyah to then be able to evolve once more and develop an endoskeleton and a posture with similar limb arrangement to its opponent Godzilla. Its horn and frill didn't go anywhere. This thing in particular proved to be a lethal weapon. Known as a variable slicer, this thing would be supercharged with energy and as a result able to inflict more damage, cutting right through Godzilla's thick armor. This energy flux inside the horn itself would then act as a sharpening agent, enabling this horn to pierce the thickest of armor. But perhaps the most frightening attribute of this kaiju was its malevolence. Before this, Godzilla would have faced evil forces as well, but not so much as the monster in this film. One who clearly enjoyed taking its time in the act of killing and knew exactly what it was doing. Destoroyah, apart from looking like a demon, quite literally acted like one. This was the last and only time Destoroyah appeared in a film. It did appear in video games and...
Did it actually only appear there? I thought it was in like 2 films at least.
comics, but not on the big screen. But what if it did appear in the Monsterverse? Does this cinematic universe set the stage for the return of this monster?
Pretty much.
The answer is a solid yes.
Yeah.
The directors of Godzilla King of the Monsters saw fit to reintroduce another element present in the classic Godzilla films, the introduction of the Oxygen Destroyer. Put very simply, the way this weapon works is basically like this. A bomb filled with chemical compounds would be detonated in the waters where the target would be at. During its release, a chemical reaction would remove the oxygen from the water, creating an environment that is lethal to all living organisms. This can also lead to cellular destruction and imminent death in the creature affected by it. So, since we already have an Oxygen Destroyer detonation happening in the Monsterverse...
And it was such a fuck up to launch that thing too, because Godzilla would have killed Ghidorah in the water right there, and then all the problems would have been put to rest, but not, we just gotta... They got too paranoid. They got too paranoid and didn't want to chance it, and well, they should have chanced it.
Timeline, we would have a good excuse for some ancient life form who happened to be in the way of this blast to one day evolve to become the new Destoroyah. But who knows?
Yeah, now that I think about it, that's another thing that would make sense where the Destroyer would come in, because some people, I imagine some people would say, but there was nothing hit by this oxygen destroyer to radiate it and everything, or mutate it and everything. But then again, remember, we got Hollow Earth and shit's going in and out of the portals, and you got that shit in underwater too. So yeah, imagine just hit something there.
Maybe this creature already exists in this timeline. From this point on, the remainder of this episode is 100% pure speculation, so treat all of this with a grain of salt.
Yeah, remember those.
After all, you're all here to see a what-if scenario.
Yep.
So, with that in mind, let's talk about where Destoroyah might be in the Monsterverse. Our
I need
speculative
to find a Godzilla game and play it. I need to.
Destoroyah timeline will begin in 2019 in Isla de Mara off the coast of Mexico. After the detonation of the oxygen destroyer, several Precambrian crustaceans made contact with this chemical reaction. The origin of these in the Monsterverse could be one of many. Some may have just been already present in the surrounding strata, or to make things more interesting, these may have made their way to the surface from a near Hollow Earth vortex, a place where many creatures resembling prehistoric organisms
Maybe it's in Hollow Earth right now.
can swim up from. Once making contact with this chemical reaction, these crustaceans would have mutated over time. Come the events of GXK and the discovery of even more titans. Monarch would at this point still be oblivious to the existence of these.
Imagine if it went around to other titans and started absorbing their powers too. Like I found out that Tiamat's head is in like a container thingy or whatever, and that it has an offspring too. That's probably gonna be gunning after Godzilla, and it'll probably just go down too. Probably. But I'm just now realizing, what if Destoroyah goes around and just takes the DNA of everything and just goes all out against Zilla? What if that happens? It's an interesting thought, or at least what's left alive. Or do they need to be alive? If they don't need to be alive, then Destroyer's gonna have no issue getting Tiamat and Scylla. Well, if there's anything left of Scylla and Tiamat. Well, we got the head, but I don't know about Scylla though. I don't know.
These constantly mutating organisms. With each passing day, these small creatures begin evolving, reproducing themselves mutation after mutation. If you recall from the 1995 film, the power of micro-oxygen was wielded not just by the latter forms of Destoroyah, but also the smaller forms. And since we already established that Destoroyah is able to absorb DNA from its victims and integrate characteristics of its prey into itself, it's likely that Destoroyah would attain characteristics of other classes of animals. At some point during the Monsterverse timeline, these sea-dwelling...
That is true, yeah. I guess. Damn.
Animals may have grown large enough to catch and mutilate big prey. Prey big enough to catch the attention of humans. The findings of large marine animals and consistent types of wounds on prey animals will eventually catch the attention of Monarch, who will eventually connect the dots and begin the search of whatever it is that is killing these animals. At this size, the crustaceans would be large enough to cause damage to larger life forms. In the original 1995 film, it was at this point when these creatures began making contact with humans. If Destoroyah ever makes it into the big screen in this franchise, our best guess is that they wouldn't skimp on the opportunity to make these monsters interact with humans face to face at a more personal level.
Oh yeah.
At this point, the micro-oxygen blast of these animals would be strong enough to mortally wound humans in an instant. Bulletproof and numerous, a horde of these crustaceans from hell would be nothing short of a horrific thing to witness. Monarch would have collected enough samples.
This footage right here already looks like something you'd see out of some crazy-ass horror film.
Hell would be nothing short of a horrific thing to witness. Monarch would have collected enough samples at this point to figure out where these things came from and whose fault it was. Humans. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to be like, alright, who did this, and whoever did it's in trouble, and then they find out it was them. Oh. Damn. Yeah, they really and they really screwed the fucking pooch whenever they shot that. If Destoroyah is gonna be in this, they really screwed the fucking pooch whenever they bombed Godzilla in more ways than one. Because, like, that whole Ghidorah situation could have been over just then. And then now you have this later, too. Like, geez, like, how much more than Ghidorah kill after, how much more did he kill after that bomb happened? How much more? Way too much.
Specifically, the United States military.
Yeah.
This oxygen destroyer would once again bite humanity in the ass after a few decades. And given that these creatures seem to have a mind of their own,
Yeah,
and
like, it's like at this point, you know, maybe we shouldn't start bombing things anymore. Because, like, they launched a nuke in front of Godzilla and it did nothing but power him up. And then they launched another bomb, and, you know, it succeeded in that, and hurting them this time, except it didn't hurt the one that they needed to hurt. And now you have this. Yeah, how about they just stop bombing stuff in this franchise?
a special affinity to destroying things and becoming bigger and more powerful, someone else will begin to take note of this growing threat.
Oh yeah.
Destoroyah is one of the very few examples of kaiju who didn't rely on radiation to mutate and become a monster of massive proportions. It only seemed to have relied on rapid evolutionary forces and the implementation of micro-oxygen. If this was still the case in the Monsterverse, Destoroyah's only means of becoming more powerful wouldn't be targeting nuclear power plants like Scylla or the G-Man, but rather targeting other large monsters to then absorb their energy, DNA, and then becoming more powerful.
Yep.
And the other most powerful
Gonna go on a monster hunt.
creatures in this universe at this point in time would be the Alpha Titans, such as Kong, Shimo, Mothra, and Godzilla himself.
Oh yeah.
In the eyes of Destoroyah, these titans, amongst other powerful titans like Rodan, for instance, would be seen as a buffet instead of just another form of opposition.
Oh lord, yeah, they just go for them just for fun.
Admittedly, the Monsterverse rendition of Destoroyah would still welcome radioactive energy with open arms.
Oh, yeah,
Before we
that's
talk
fine.
about how powerful Destoroyah could be in this universe, let's quickly talk about how Destoroyah would look in the Monsterverse. The first thing that comes to mind is size, and this
Yep.
thing in this universe would be nothing short of massive.
Oh, yeah.
We aren't here to predict
If I had to take a guess, I imagine if it was in here, it would dwarf Shimo a little bit. Or at least be bigger than Shimo.
exactly how big, but for fun, let's use the size comparison between Destoroyah and Godzilla in the 1995 film. If we use the same size difference ratio seen in this movie, this means that proportionally speaking, we are looking at a Destoroyah that is around 471 feet in height. This isn't taller than an upright Shimo or Ghidorah. Size in this case isn't the most dangerous characteristic of this monster.
Oh, yeah,
More
that's
on
true.
this in a little bit. Now to physical characteristics. In this more grounded and realistic take on a kaiju universe,
And
design-wise,
now that I'm thinking about it, is there like Godzilla mods for games like Skyrim or something? Because I'm looking at Destroy and it's like, it reminds me of something out of like Elden Ring or Skyrim or something. It looks like a boss out of like one of those games or something. It just does to me.
some of the physical traits of Destoroyah's final perfect form won't really hold up in the Monsterverse. That said, the overall designs of the crawl, juvenile, aggregate, and even the flying form hold up kind of well by today's design standards. With a bit of tweaking, the flying form of Destoroyah would still look pretty good in a Monsterverse film. It's the perfect form that will need some work.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Well, if you remember, Destoroyah's perfect form was also capable of flight. The problem here is that an animal this bulky, with especially thick legs, would have a very hard time flying with wings this small. To raise an animal like this into the air requires massive amounts of force. This requires stronger muscles and larger wings. There are many talented artists online who already took a stab at making a Monsterverse version of Destoroyah. Some
Oh yeah,
of these
definitely. Like you look at some of the fan creations and it is like, damn. Like they know what they're doing.
include those made by Jared Medina or Sangoon. More updated versions of the Destroyer kaiju that would fit well with the Monsterverse's monster aesthetics. One
And now this looks like something I'd find in Doom. Jesus.
common character suffer from many numerous cuts, gashes, and nasty lacerations on its body.
Oh, yeah.
If Godzilla does indeed survive this fight, these types of wounds would inflict scars that
Question is if.
would last a lifetime. And that's on the heavily armored Godzilla. Any other weaker kaiju would have suffered a grim fate.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of gore-inflicting weapons, the variable slicer of this monster will still hold up in this cinematic universe. Having a superheated knife in the middle of its forehead and, used correctly, Destoroyah would have yet another weapon that could easily dispatch any lesser kaiju with a single stab. Its tail would have been the most powerful we've seen, potentially much longer than that of Godzilla's, or around the same size as Shimo's. This tail would not only have impact forces capable of killing with a well-placed hit, but also grab and hold an opposing titan, strangling it and absorbing its energy. As Destoroyah continuously evolves with each form stronger than the previous, it will probably take a team effort of titans to take down this monster. That said,
Gonna need like a damn Avengers moment.
Here at Goji Center, we do think that adding Destoroyah to the roster of Monsterverse kaiju is a must.
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
It's too early. Destoroyah is the type of titan that should be saved for the end game.
Oh yeah.
It's simply too powerful. This showdown between Destoroyah and Godzilla will require...
You gotta time it right for when you bring this thing in. Yeah, because we can't just bring it in like the next Godzilla movie. We gotta like wait a few more.
Require an Alpha Titan at his best, most powerful form not seen yet. Currently in the Monsterverse timeline, Destoroyah may already be lurking the seas as a microbe or a frightening man-eating crustacean, waiting for the right moment to strike.
Who knows? I definitely want to see that thing in the Monsterverse. I think it would be really cool. I really do. It would be really cool and nice. Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to end the video now, especially since I gotta go to work in a bit. So, yeah. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, check out the original one, which will be linked in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.